Lifestyle Podcast. Use the power of discovering new habits to create success in all areas of life. Body, fitness and nutrition, being, spirituality, passion and purpose, balance, marriage, kids and relationships, business, marketing, sales, leadership and systems. Transform your life by learning how habits work. And now your host, a husband, father, entrepreneur, trainer, coach, and warrior, Jesse Ewell.
Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I am your host, Jesse Ewell, and today we're going to be talking about this habit of knowing what you're worth. How much are you worth per hour? Do you even know what your time is worth? Listen, I've had this conversation come up more and more over the last 3 weeks, and it's that people in conversation with coaching clients is that people can't afford to hire people in their business, even in their personal life, like housekeepers, nannies, assistants, all these things. And so as you're listening to this podcast today, I want you to think about times in your life where you may have had a similar feeling like you just couldn't afford to hire this other person. You couldn't afford to hire a nanny. You couldn't afford to hire a housekeeper. You couldn't afford to even maybe hire someone to cook you food. Because here's the thing. If you knew what you were really worth per hour, how much you made per hour, these decisions would be very simple. These decisions would come down to a very simple answer. And if you don't know, you may be spending hours trying to save dollars instead of making hundreds of thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, and that's getting in the way. You thinking that you're actually saving dollars when you're actually missing out on hundreds of thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. You see, this goes way back for me about 13 years ago when I first became an entrepreneur. This also goes really back to even me being in high school. But I remember when I first became a gym owner, I opened up my own training facility along with my wife, and I thought I was saving money. I can even remember doing a lot of the construction work at the time because I'm like, man, I'm really saving money by doing all this work myself, doing all this tear out. And by me being the do-it-all-yourself business owner, what was actually happening was I was the owner who was the janitor. I would clean up bathrooms in the gym. Some of you may be able to relate to this by thinking about this. I was the cleaner. I would clean my gyms, literally from vacuuming to wiping everything down. I would be the receptionist, and I would answer phones. I would help out customers who came in. Even I was the sales guy. At times, I was even the painter. I could paint the walls. Anybody scuffed them up. Anybody made a hole in the wall, I could even patch them. And at other times, I was the marketer. I could bring in new customers. I could sign up new people. I was the salesman that would actually sign them up. I was the trainer who could literally train anyone. And then at the same time, I was the manager, and I could control and make sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to. And then on top of all of that, I was actually the owner. But think about this. I was proud, just as proud to be the owner as I was the janitor. I was just as proud to be the cleaner as I was the marketer. And what's crazy about this is I didn't actually realize this at the time. But now that I actually look back, I can remember thinking, man, I'm not too good for any of these jobs. I'm not too good to be a janitor. I'm not too good to unclog toilets, which at certain times I had to do that too. I wasn't too proud to do any of these jobs. Like I wasn't above any of them. But as time went on, I started to realize that something was actually happening. You see, there was this thing happening in my business that I was being pulled away from what I did best. I was being pulled away from the gifts that actually had me start this business. You see, for a lot of these things, I was doing these things because I had to, not because I wanted to. I was doing these things because I had to. I had no one else that would clean the toilets. I had no one else that would paint. I had no one else that would clean. I had no one else that would answer phones. I would have no one else that would market. I didn't have a manager. At the time when I first started, I may have only had 1 or 2 employees. And soon as the business started to grow, I started to hit these places, and we can just call them possibly like a stop sign or maybe like a dead end. There wasn't any more time for me to do anything else. There wasn't any more space I had to do many of these things. And so after a while, I realized that in order for me to grow my business, in order for me to maximize the time I spent in my business, I realized I needed to learn how to actually run the business. You see, I started realizing that there were certain jobs that really maximized my paycheck. There were certain jobs that actually got me paid and gave me what I was worth per hour. And the more that I focused on the jobs, like cleaning, like being a janitor, and all these other things, the less money I would make per hour. And we could kind of think of this in a certain way. This means that probably about 3 jobs that I listed off, which was the marketer, the trainer, and the business owner, were actually at the pay grade that I made per hour. Everything else was way below that. It wasn't that I was too good for them. It just meant in order for me to maximize my business and maximize the amount of money I put into my account, I had to begin to let go of some of the things that I was doing. But here's the thing. Every time I was doing one of those jobs, it was actually costing me money. It was actually costing me hundreds of dollars. You see, most people look at hiring someone to do these jobs as an added cost. So take, for instance, if I had to hire a janitor, a cleaner, a receptionist, these are all jobs that have an added cost. Yes. Let's just say these jobs, somebody was going to make $15 an hour, which is a pretty high paying job. But that's kind of the going rate nowadays, unless you live in some small town in Wyoming, and then it's $7.25 an hour. But here in California, minimum wage is around $15. But think about this. Let's say that back then the average price I made per hour was $100. I made $100 an hour, or I could look at this as, hey, I have to pay someone $15 an hour to do many of the jobs like janitor, cleaning, receptionist, painting. These all cost me $15 an hour. But let's say I spent 3 hours a day on these tasks, which would cost me, if I'm making $100 an hour and I was a trainer focused on those, or marketer, business owner, I would be making roughly $100 an hour. So roughly for the 3 hours I was spending on being a janitor, receptionist, I could potentially be making $300 an hour. And if I'm paying someone to do many of those jobs, it would be costing me $45 for 3 hours. And so imagine this. 3 hours at $100 an hour is what I'm making. Now I've leveraged my time back. I'm no longer a janitor. I'm no longer cleaning. I'm no longer a receptionist. I'm no longer painting or doing any other of these jobs. And so I'm leveraging my time. I'm hiring out someone that can do some of these positions. And so my 3 hours is back to me so I can focus on making that $100 an hour. And then the $15 an hour job someone else is responsible for. So imagine 100 hours goes by. And by now, it's costing me $10,000, $100 an hour times 100 hours versus this $100 or 100 hours times $15. So now we have a difference of $10,000 and $15,000. And I would have spent all of these on other positions. So think about that. That means for every job that I do in this category, it's costing me $100 per hour. And not only that, it's going to cost me 85% of the money that I'm actually going to put into my pocket. And you know something, business owners are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars every year doing these jobs, being the janitor, doing all of these things, trying to save money because of their mindset, because of the lack and the ability that they have to delegate and hire people so they can leverage their time to make more money than they ever thought was possible, to focus on the jobs that actually bring in the most amount of money. And you know what? They'll say things like this: I can't afford to hire an employee. I can't afford to bring someone else on my team. And I'll say, you know what? You can't afford not to, because right now it's either you're paying someone $15 an hour so you can leverage and continue to make this $100 an hour, or you're going to save the $15 an hour and you're going to have to pay yourself that same $15. And now you're losing out on $85 instead of turning it into making that amount of money. So I want you to think about in your life, how are you really saving money? Look at the impact that this actually makes over a year. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars that it's costing you to make this one decision out of lack, this decision out of scarcity. And then let's look at things like hiring a house cleaner, maybe a nanny or a babysitter, maybe someone to cook your meals to help take the pressure off at home from your wife, from yourself, to give her some space, or just to add some help into your home. So many men and women are unwilling to do this because of the cost. Yet, if you factor everything in per hour, you would see that you could actually start maximizing your time and your life to actually leverage and make the money, to make the most amount of money possible. You see, if I could just exclusively focus on the work that brought me in the most amount of money, I could make 2 to 3 times more money. And this is where I find most business owners will struggle. They have no idea how much they make per hour. They have no idea how much they're actually worth per hour. And so they end up doing these busy tasks that are $12 to $15 an hour jobs instead of focusing on the jobs that actually pay them the real money. If you want to clean up production in your business, you're going to have to outsource or learn to outsource everything below your pay. Focus on what you get paid to do, not focusing on being busy. And I get it. Like, I was the same way for many years as an entrepreneur. I thought the same way. I thought I was actually saving myself money. And now when I look back, I'm like, man, I was such an idiot. I wonder how fast I could have got my company up to 7 figures if I would have learned this out. If I would have learned about this a year, 6 months into it, how fast could I have accelerated my results? Now, I get it. If you can't afford to do this, or should I say, if you're too afraid to take the leap, have someone start part-time. And you'll realize how much time you're actually wasting. Start with maybe 15 to 20 hours a week, maybe 10 hours a week. And you will realize that this is one of the best decisions you can make as a businessman or businesswoman, is just to simply free up your time to focus on the things that actually make you money. Outsource all jobs, even cleaning, cooking, maybe babysitting, and you will see that it's the best money that you've ever spent. Because here's what I know. I will either spend the money on something else, or I will leverage the money to hire someone else. And if I'm looking at those two things, either I'm going to spend the money on something else, or I can leverage the money and hire someone else. Both ways the money's being spent, but one of the ways is an investment. The other way is just me getting rid of money. And I want to look at this as a way to leverage my money so I can begin to maximize it. But here's the real question. Where in your life do you need to learn to delegate jobs? Do you need to learn to leverage some of the jobs in your business? Maybe it's a receptionist. Maybe it's hiring someone to do some ads on social media. Maybe it's a nanny, a cook, a cleaner. Whatever it is, decide what it is, decide what you're really good at, decide what you make per hour, and then learn how to begin to hire people under that pay amount so that you can begin to leverage and delegate the amount of time you're spending in your business and maximize the amount of money that you're making in your business. And I can guarantee you this, if you do this and you do it the right way, you will make 50% more than you're currently making in your own business. That's minimum. If you can learn to do this in 95% of the stuff that you're doing every day and spend the majority of the time on the 5% that is bringing you in the most money, you could 2 to 3 times your revenue. But what's one thing you can start doing today to delegate some of these jobs that you're doing that are paying you and taking money away from your pocket? So I want to thank you guys for being on here. If you're looking to connect further with a group of like-minded people, join myself and so many others in the Habit-Based Lifestyle Secrets group on Facebook, where I will be dropping daily habits to help you live to your full potential. Maybe you want to be one of our next case studies and begin living this habit-based lifestyle. Reach out to me. If you have questions, comments, leave me a review. Or if you have a request, feel free to contact me, jesse@habitbasedlifestyle.com. Until next episode, have a great day.